Hey
I got
everybody,
my
welcome
head
back
in
to
the
Keeping It
stars.
Real with Tiff and Carl. I'm Carl Rabun,
And I am Tiff Salcedo.
and it has been a time. It has been a busy, busy time. The weather's starting to heat up,
Yes.
and I was on the road yesterday. I was coming back from Monterey County or Salinas. There's a difference between Monterey and Salinas, right? So when Salinas
Absolutely.
is 85, Monterey is 65. So I was in Salinas, and I can tell you, my dad sent me a picture of, being out near Palm Springs at 101, and I looked down at my thermostat when I was driving through, I think it was Escalon or Lathrop, one of those roads on I-5, and it was 101, and so I took a picture of it for him, and he's like, "Wow, it's just as hot." Yeah, I said, "Yeah, it's hot everywhere. It's warming up." And so was our travel schedule. I know you
Mhm.
just had a 2 week marathon, so yeah, how's your travels been?
That 12-day marathon sucked
Yeah.
so bad. Like just sucked so bad. I I had the only good stays I had was the first night and the last night. Everything in between was horrible. Um, I got to my first hotel fine, second hotel because we booked state rate. They didn't want to give me the state rate, so that was like a whole situation. Um, and the room I got was they had it was by Fresno State and they had like some kind of sports tournament going on.
Mhm.
And so there's a bunch of like sports teams and young adults staying at the hotel who apparently don't realize that people go to hotels to sleep. And so they were super loud. They were running up and down the hallways. I have my dog with me, so my dog is like, at every little noise. And at one point, I think it was like 11:30 at night, and I was so tired. And I opened the door. I'm like, "You better get that crap off!" Those aren't the words I used, but I yelled at all of these young adults in my best mom voice, and they all went to their rooms and went to sleep. My kids were somewhere were like, I'm gonna go to bed. I was irritated. So, but I was tired, and then we get to Calusa, which was the next stop, and it's by the casino, the Rolling Hills Casino. Not Calusa. I keep doing this. It wasn't
Yeah,
Calusa. It was
Glenn.
Corning.
Yeah,
Corning.
yeah, Corning.
Corning.
Yeah, yeah.
Corning. So, and it was by the Rolling Oaks or the Rolling Hills Casino. And every freaking night around 1 or 2 in the morning, everybody would roll in from the casino and be super loud and wake the dog up and wake me up. And then I couldn't go back to sleep and it would just irritate me. So that was for 3 nights. So then we drive all the way up to Crescent City, and I stayed for the last time at the Oceanfront Lodge. And when they give me my room, it was like right, like when you walk in the Oceanfront Lodge, it looks like, by the way, I found out it used to be a hospital, which makes a whole lot of sense now.
Mhm.
But it's like this big inn facing the ocean, and it's beautiful. Like the location is gorgeous. But you walk in the front door and it's like this big open lobby. There's restaurant, and then they have rooms up at the top, like up the top of the stairs, like right there in the lobby. And so she gives me my room, and it's the room right in the middle of the lobby at the second floor, like overlooking the entire big open lobby. And before I even like go upstairs, I tell her that room is not gonna work for us. I can tell you right now, it's too high of a traffic area, and we have a very reactive dog. Like this is going to be a shit show for us. So do you have any room, like in a corner somewhere? I don't even care. Downgrade me to, it doesn't have to have an ocean view. Like I just need a quiet room. And she's like, that's all we got. So she's like, but it's quiet. It's quiet. It was not freaking quiet. It was like the worst stay I have ever had in a hotel ever in the history of ever. They have slate like tile floors, and I swear to you their luggage carts are from 1874 with like metal wheels, and so every time someone came out of the elevator and walked with their room, it sounded like a freaking freight train was going through the room. And then there's a pool table right below us, so every time people play pool, every time crack crack, my dog's like,
Yeah, yeah.
freaking out. And I don't want other people to be bothered by my dog barking, so we're like trying to keep him quiet and keep him relaxed the whole time. I did not sleep for like 3 days. By the third day, I was in such a bad mood, like such a bad mood. And we were we were leaving, and my husband's like, "Oh, look at this." We're like, of course, in the redwoods and the ocean, and it's like all these little vista points. And he's like, "Oh, look at this." And I finally had to look at him. I'm like, you know what? I'm not in the mood for you to be freaking cute today. And I am not in the mood for an adventure. I've seen the fucking redwoods, excuse me. I've seen that, bleep that out for me, please. But I've seen the redwoods and I've seen the
Keeping it
ocean.
real. We're keeping it real. We're doing it
But
live.
I
We're
was
doing it
like,
live. Yeah.
I am not in the mood to be, I am not in the mood to be awed by nature and glory, please. I just want to get to the next place. I'm freaking tired. So he listened, and I went to sleep in the car because I literally had been up all night. It was the worst night ever. When you wake up, I don't know if you ever wake up so tired, you just feel sick, you feel hungover, you feel gross. Like I was at that point, and so I fell asleep. I woke up. We were in Lake County. I'm like, are you trying to kill me? Where are we at? Where are we at? But by the time we got to the next hotel, and it was Memorial Day weekend, so everything was expensive. We didn't know where we were going to land. It's almost a 14-hour drive from Crescent City to my house. And so I wasn't doing that in one fell swoop. We just were going to drive until we got tired. We ended up in Rancho Cordova. I got to have gas station Chinese twice, which made me really, really happy. I got to see my bestie, which
You
made
got to
me
see
really,
Dell?
really happy.
Yeah.
Yes. And that made me so happy. And then I got a good night. So we got a really nice hotel room. I say nice hotel room, meaning a quiet room. And we slept. And that was the end of it. But then I had to come home and do my expense report. That took 4 business days. And I was doing it as I went. I was keeping track as I went, but that was never again, is what I'm saying. I'm never going to schedule myself like that again. I learned a very valuable lesson. But I only have this week coming up 3 days in person, and I am done in person this fiscal year. And I cannot tell
Wow.
you the joy that I don't know how it worked out. I promise you it was not intentional. But I'm going to be back in Glen and back in Fresno this week. And I come home and do a couple virtual classes, and then I will be in Mexico until Tribal Tennis. I am so excited.
Yay, 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 yay.
I am so
Yeah.
excited. I literally every day I wake up and I'm like, 5 more sleeps, 4 more. Like I am so excited. I am so excited to go back home. I am so happy. I cannot wait. I cannot
Very
wait.
cool. Very,
Yeah.
very cool. Yeah. Well,
Where you been?
I had a couple
Yeah.
weeks off the road, and then the last 2 weeks I've been, geez, I've been traveling, and which is fine, except, the hardest travels are when you're going like from one spot to another spot. I try to coordinate my travel so that I'm just going from one place to another and then coming all the way back. Like if I have Tulare and I've done Fresno, Tulare, and Kern, and
Hmm.
I'll do Fresno first, Tulare second, Kern third. I try not to do, I try to make sure that those go in order so I can have a, just trip straight back and just don't have to, I can drive an hour and get to my hotel or whatever else it is. But I started last week. I started in El Dorado County, so Placerville, all right,
Hmm.
which I got to sleep in my own bed. But then I drove straight to the airport and got on a flight and went to Ventura, and then taught in Ventura. Got home that same night, and because I had to teach a virtual class in Ventura the next day. Right. And I was informed that, they only have one training room in Ventura. That's why they have like a hybrid. Sometimes they have in person and sometimes they don't. Um so I taught in person the whole day, and then the next day I taught a virtual, class that I did. And then I went somewhere else. I can't remember. Oh, yeah. Well, then my daughter and I went to Napa, went to Bottle Rock for the Bottle Rock concert, got to see Green Day, and they were awesome, right? That's kind of like that's our group that we kind of bonded on. It's like our second favorite group. And she usually doesn't stay for like the whole show. We stayed for almost the whole show, except for like a
Wow.
couple encores. And I hope you have the time of your life. We've seen that, right? So, but then it was cool because I also got to see E40, got to see Public Enemy. So it was a cool. I got to see Flavor Flav cook his fried chicken, and got to see Serena Williams
Flavor
and her
Flav.
daughter cooking. Yeah, exactly. And then Chuck D was there, a bunch of you know, baseball greats, otherwise known as the San Francisco Giants, were there. Ken Griffey Jr. was there. Right. So it was cool. We had a blast. It was one of my funnest one day festival trips. And we do festivals every year, so that was cool. But then after Memorial Day, I was in Oakland on Tuesday, and then I went to Visalia Wednesday, taught there, came home, taught a class on Thursday in Montana, virtually in Montana, and then drove down to Monterey for a class yesterday. So, I try to coordinate, like you mentioned, I try to coordinate where I'm on the road all at the same time. I just realized, just coming home, just even that little bit of time, that just, for me, when I get home, it's like it's the finish line. I can relax. But then I was back on the road again. So kind of took its toll on me. But I'm all right. I'm here, right? And we were just talking about that yesterday in the class. I talked to two people yesterday, and
Ooh. Ooh.
yeah, two people from Monterey County, aging and adult, and we were just talking about, they travel. And Monterey County is large, right? So, they work in the Salinas office, but they do home visits because they're IHSS social workers. And so they go all the way from King City, which is 50 miles away from Monterey, all the way up to Seaside and Marina and Castroville, which is in the far end of Monterey County, which is 25 miles. So, and they're driving all the time, and they're talking about how it takes its toll. I said, "Oh, you're preaching to the choir here." So, and it was good because it was a class on resilience, and so that was definitely it was fun. And then I got to go to Casa de Fruta and got my cherries, got my wife her honey roasted cashews. She won't eat honey roasted cashews from anywhere else other than Casa de Fruta. So it's we had to load up with that. Then they had a 2-for-1 wine sale. Casa de Fruta, don't sleep on Casa de Fruta's wines. They
Yeah.
they they do a lot of fruit wines, which I've never been a big connoisseur of, but I mean, they have a blackberry wine that's amazing, and then they have this one they call the Soul of the Boot, which is just a red wine blend that's just amazing. So they had a 2-for-1 sale, so it was cool.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I like their plum wine. The Casa de Fruta plum wine is one of
yeah,
my favorite fruit wines, and that makes a very good sangria. I heard from a
yeah,
friend. I don't drink, so uh, I heard from a friend it makes a good sangria.
yeah. So if you don't, Casa de Fruta is in between like Gilroy and Santa Clara County and Santanella, Los Banos there in Merced County. And there's the Pacheco Pass, which goes up the mountain and down through the San Luis Reservoir. And in there, on the Santa Clara County side, and right next to the town of Hollister, there's this kind of, I don't know, resort that's been there for 70 years. And it's an open air fruit market, but then they also make their own nuts. They do their own chocolate, fudge, ice cream. Then they have a restaurant. Now they're opening up a hotel. Did you see
Oh
Casa?
wow.
I think
I,
I think it's called Casa de Sleep or something like that, right? There's
it was
yeah,
Casa de something.
it's Casa de Sweets, Casa de, it's
Yeah.
it's all dad jokes, but yeah, so it's
I haven't seen that. I haven't been through there in a while though, so I'll have to check
yeah,
that out next
yeah, it's pretty cool. And they do the Renaissance Fair there now,
time. Okay.
like in
Mhm.
October. I used to go to Renaissance Fair when I was younger. You know, yeah, they kept moving it around, and now it's there, I guess, situated in Casa de Fruta.
When I lived
So
in Merced, I spent a lot of time passing through Casa de Fruta because that was like the halfway point between where I lived in Santa Cruz, which is where I spent a lot of my free time.
mhm,
I love Santa Cruz.
mhm.
I miss Santa Cruz. I haven't been to Santa Cruz in so long. That used to be my spot. That used to be my place.
Yeah,
But Casa de Fruta was like the halfway point where you could stop, get a snack, go to the bathroom, check
yeah.
those wine sales, see what's what. Cool little spot
What's what?
for
What?
sure. Yep. What? You gotta
I,
do like
I,
that.
I did that in the class I taught in El Dorado County. We went through the what, so what, now what, and the what, and so I made sure to honor your what. So, and
Thank you.
Melissa was
Thank you.
laughing. Yeah, we have a mutual friend up there. Well, it's her friend, and
You
she.
can we can share Melissa. I love Melissa.
All
There's
right,
enough love to
cool.
go around there. She's
Melissa's
cool.
good people. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so it was fun. And then this week I get to be home for class, right? I actually had a couple classes cancel, reschedule, you know, and so I have
Mhm.
actually Monday, Tuesday off, but then I teach from home Wednesday, Thursday, and then I have coaching on Friday. I try to set up my coaching for Fridays, so but then the next week I'm in San Francisco and then Ventura and then back to San Francisco and then it's a whole fiasco. But it's fun. I mean, my two
The
favorite
end of the
places
fiscal
to
year.
train. Yeah, yeah. My two
Yeah.
favorite places to train, San Francisco County and Ventura County. I'm not going to get to spend a whole lot of time there, but it's still cool, So yeah, it never stops. And then the last week of June, I'm up in Lassen for 2 days and Modoc for one day. I start in Stockton for a bank that I worked for on Monday,
Mhm.
and then Tuesday I actually had blocked off because a class that was scheduled last year and then it got canceled 9 months ago and I just forgot to take it off my calendar. So it actually gives me a full day to drive up to Lassen and relax and drive through the Feather River, nice and relaxed, and maybe have dinner in in Susanville. And you know, did I ever tell you did you guys ever hear my Susanville story?
You've told us.
Yeah, the
Or
frozen
your
where
doctor.
no,
No,
the
not that
frozen one. No,
one.
where
No.
I froze my
Oh, yeah, yeah,
toes.
yeah. Yes, the power went out and they had everybody but you. Or
Yeah, well, the
was it on your?
generator was right next to my room, but it wasn't
Yes,
generating for me. It was generating for the
right.
other side. So I
Yeah.
I got to hear the generator was trolling me, basically. Everyone
Like,
else
look at
power.
everybody else is warm, but not you.
Yeah. And I had like one little half a sheet when I asked for an extra blanket, but so anyways,
Yeah.
so I know not to stay there again. Yeah, I'm good, but yeah. So anyways, I'm yeah, it gets busy, but like I said, when I wasn't out on the road, I was missing being out there with my peeps. So, it's definitely every time it's just like one of the girls said yesterday. She said every time I think about how frustrating or how tired I am, I just think, yeah, but I mean, this is my favorite job I've ever had. So, and I'm like, yeah, it's the same thing. I said, I love being here with you guys. I
Mhm.
said, and I don't mind the travel. It's just the older I get, the more it's taking a toll on me. That's all. But I mean, you know, if I could just, like you said, teleportation, your superpower. Yeah, I could do that. Wiggle the
Same.
nose like
I
Bewitched.
wish it was that simple. I really do. Really do.
Sounds like a Wu-Tang song. Can it be that it was a simple thing? All right. So, Tiff, it is now time for our top five.
Hmm.
And so, our top five question of the week is thinking of, we're talking about travel, but, we travel to go to these places and to work with these people and our friends because of different topics that they schedule. And sometimes the classes are scheduled based off of need from the staff development office will identify needs. They do surveys. Sometimes they just, in a few different counties, I know I just talked to one this week where they just the send out the list of classes from UC Davis and managers just pick out which classes they want to have for their staff. And so, but then every now and then you'll get a specific need. I know I did one for the entire Fresno County um, call center, eligibility call center, all 400 staff on crisis de-escalation and things like that because they had an incident with the client, right? And so where people were a little unnerved, and it was an unnerving incident, right? So, something to have that conversation. So every now and then we get those special ones as well, and then sometimes we just have stuff that are canned, that is part of our curriculum that people look for and can help our clients. And then sometimes they just say, hey, we want Tiff to teach to teach up here. So let's just come up with a topic. Oh, Carl hasn't been up here in a while. Let's pick one of his topics, right? So the question is, what is just give me your five most memorable class topics
The
and can
ones
make one of them I'm sorry, and make one of them something that maybe was a challenge for you. At least one.
they're all well, I mean, they're all challenging in their own
Mhm.
way. I think that the my favorite like top I have. the top two, because I would say that these are probably tied for top two. The first one is centered always around the drama triangle and moving from drama to empowerment. So that one is probably again top tied for top one. And the second one that's tied to that is one that's on resiliency and personal accountability. Like those two right there, I think are the most impactful. And for me, the most memorable because it gets people out of that like space. Well, the intention of it is to get people out of that space of feeling like helpless or, where everybody's pointing the finger at each other and really just kind of feeling empowered to do something, right? So maybe I need to change my mindset. Maybe I need to think about the situation from a different perspective, or maybe I have a skill that I need to develop to manage through what the reality is. Or maybe I need resources and I need information, or I need to connect with people, or whatever it is. It's both of those classes I think are very, very solution focused, which is where my mind is always at. Like we can talk about the problems, but what are we going to do about it? So those two are my, like, I think the most impactful and the ones that I get a lot of feedback like, wow, this really made me think about my problems in life, both personal and professional. And I can do something about it. I feel really powerful to do something about it. So those for me stand out. I also love, and I think that's impactful, is conflict resolution. I do a lot of conflict resolution classes, um, which is really ironic, being that I'm almost like historically have been the conflict. I've grown up so much, but I have been the conflict. I am the one to, I can give you, I think the reason I'm good at conflict resolution now is I can tell you all the ways to not do it because I've practiced all the ways to not deal with conflict. But I've got it down pretty good now. And that one is memorable to me because I've had more than one occasion where people have come to me and say, you know what, I think you might have saved my marriage. I think you know what, I think you gave me the language I needed to talk to my teenage child who's self-destructing. Or like to me, that always stands out to me because it's not just impacting people's work life, but like if you can improve your relationships at home, like that's a game to me, it's a game changer for everything else. So that always stands out to me. Um, Another one that's like most memorable that I think also, again, I'm thinking about memorable in terms of impact, like where it really has an impact, is the disc, specifically like the beginning of emerging leadership, where people get to see, they get their personalized Wiley disc report that tells them exactly, like how they're perceived and their strengths and their challenges and their um things that motivate them and things that stress them. And then they get to kind of see how to work with other styles in a more effective way. I think that one's always really memorable because I sit there and I watch people like light bulbs go off, and they're like, oh, that's why so and so's like that. Oh, okay, now and maybe it's not personal and I can move past and work with this person. Or, oh, that's why my husband's such a jerk. Whatever it is, there's like a lot of like realization that people are not terrible, horrible, difficult people. It's just we see things from different perspectives. So I love that. That one is always memorable for me. Watching the recognition and the realization about the differences in humanity. And I think the other one I also I would, to round up the top five, is just not necessarily a specific class, but a topic, which is kind of funny. This is going to be a good segue for later, but how to give feedback. Like how to give feedback, how to give feedback to your staff, how to give feedback to your boss, how to give feedback to your peers, how to give feedback, how to take feedback too, because giving feedback is one thing, but being able to take feedback, I think is also important. And for me, that one always stands out to me because it's about like, let's learn how to tell people the truth. And I really come to it from that perspective of how do we tell people the truth without resentment, right? And that means doing some of the groundwork before the feedback to make sure that you have like trusting and genuine professional relationships, or in your personal relationships, trusting and loving relationships, so that when I do have to come and talk to you about something that maybe is a struggle for me or for you, we can have that conversation and know it's coming from a genuine good place, not to shame or blame or make you feel bad. It's about like kindness, and I care about you, and I want this to be different so we can be better. And that one to me is always impactful. I can't say I've always been good at that, you know. Even in my personal life, I'm an avoider sometimes. Well, believe it or not, I'm not necessarily an avoider. Is it worth my time to have this conversation, or can I just cut them off? So I guess maybe that is an avoider. I don't know how you would put it, but I'm more of a withdraw person. So you want to act crazy? Cool. Do that all by yourself. I'm out, you know? But those are usually with people where maybe I'm not invested in. Maybe I can't avoid them. I don't have to have the hard conversation. But if it's somebody that's going to be in my life and I can't avoid it, like most people at work, I can't fire you. I can't quit, I mean, I could, but it might be hard. Then maybe it's worth resolving, because we're not, neither one of us is going anywhere. So let's resolve this and keep it moving. So for me, I think those are my top five. And it's funny because they're almost all about kind of the same thing, like being honest, knowing yourself so you can be honest, and like getting out of that blame and shame circle, and really getting into like being like, let's tell people the truth, and call each other up versus call each other out. That's a good, I'm gonna write that one down. Call each other up, not call each other out. Sometimes I
Yeah,
hear stuff come out of my mouth and I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's good.
yeah, I love that one. Yeah. Well, so I'm just thinking about, yeah, my top five. So just just I guess since COVID, I mean, it's been a lot of conversations on wellness. Actually, I look back when I created a class on wellness, and it was in 2019, so even before COVID. But it was just about being resilient at work, and using mindfulness techniques. I mean, a lot of people, we get frazzled, we get distracted, we have a lot of stuff going on, and sometimes just being able to breathe and just center ourselves at our desks. I mean, we don't have to have 10 minutes of a meditation mantra, right? We can just figure out a way to do that, to get back to our center, to figure out what we're doing, and some of the tasks that can help us stay on task, like to-do lists and things like that. And but then a lot of what you're talking about too, a lot of the topics that center around emotional intelligence or
Mhm.
bias, right? And dealing with crisis. I think that's a huge thing with our folks, is that they deal with so much. And we were talking about yesterday, secondary traumatic stress can just be you working with people in existential crisis on a regular basis, where their trauma and crisis just washes over you. Like if you're just wave after wave, and it's hard just to keep your head above water when you're just inundated with this wave of crisis and stress, and deprivation. And so how do we stay positive? How do we stay, you know, in our in our focus? So that's such an important thing. I teach a class on diffusing hostility,
Mhm.
and the first half of the class is about how we perceive hostility, right?
Mhm.
So it's really about emotional intelligence. It's really about looking at our biases and how our biases set up how we interact with people, and how they can take it however they want, but it affects them. Our responses to them affects them. So, like you said, I spent a lot of time, that whole first part of the class is, when they think it's going to be a crisis de-escalation class where we're going to learn all these techniques, we spend an afternoon talking about that. But that first part is, you can learn all these crisis de-escalation techniques, but if you're not in the right mind frame to administer them, then they don't mean anything, right? And so how do we respond to that? That's such a huge piece. And I think, like you said, just the meaningful stuff. I really look for things that people can apply, right? So, we can
Mhm.
talk about
Same.
topics, but how
I
does
don't
that
want to
really
waste
work?
your time.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, one of the things where we do a lot of just exploration is like generational diversity, right? And
Mhm.
so I really like that. It's always a fun class. people always bag on Gen Z. They used to bag on millennials and now they bag on Gen Z. So, and it's funny, the millennials will bag on Gen Z. And I said, when I first created this class, it was Gen Xers and baby boomers bagging on millennials. So, I really kind of created this class to protect you guys. And now I'm here protecting Gen Z. Or not protecting, but defending, just, just with the idea
Yeah.
of, kids these days. And I say, how many generations of human beings have said kids these days, right? So,
Yeah.
and just to bring that perspective, and are things right or wrong, or are they just different, right? And having two Gen Zers in my house and just recognizing how they approach the world differently than me, right? And just recognizing, that it's not right or wrong in my mind. My emotional brain wants to say it's all wrong. Why don't they just do what I do? And I don't understand. And what's wrong with these kids? And they're doing amazing things and platforms that I have never even thought of, right? And so just having that understanding. And also what's happened since Gen Z has come of age, neuroscience has come of age, right? The last 30 years or so. And so we know that Gen Z and millennials who are are that age, they want more feedback than what, our rub some dirt on it and walk it off generation got. They want that. And a lot of our folks were, I wasn't given that when I was starting. Well, yeah, but neuroscience has shown in the last 30 years since you've started that, that actually can help and be a benefit to people. So what worked for you doesn't always work for other people. But if we get stuck in our ways and we're not in that growth mindset, you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. And oh, it's always been like this. Well, how do you break the cycle? Right. So that generational class is really important. Another one that's really important that I really like is when I get to teach hiring, because a lot of people complain about culture and having staff that, aren't aren't up for it, or maybe you know are unprepared. And so I really try to make sure that, and I come from two different places, right? I teach a hiring class for staff, I mean for managers, to look at their hiring practices and how to ask questions, what to look for in the answers, right? The behavioral questions, and so I teach staff on how to answer questions, right? How to answer them behaviorally. If you can tie in stuff that you've done in the past to things that you do now, right? Or things that you would do, right? Instead of, well, I would do this, I would do that. No, it's okay. Well, I have done this before. They gave me the keys at Jamba Juice. So that's some level of responsibility, right? So that's something that I know that I can translate, right? Just those little things like that, and then it really makes a difference in perspective. And then the leadership identity class, right? Your emerging leader class, but I also have ones called establishing leadership identity, where, we talk about, you're a newer manager or you're managing your staff. I know I managed my coworkers, and that was a huge shift. And it was,
Hmm.
I thought we did pretty well. And it was a combination of me just continuing what we had done before, but then also being their advocate, and being somebody who was approachable and could help them and advocate for them when they needed it. And so we talk about that, and also, how to have those difficult conversations, right? How to have those performance management meetings. It's funny. Performance management is one of my favorite classes I teach for this um, leadership academy that I do for Sacramento State, for a lot of the state agencies. And I love teaching the performance management class because it really breaks down the idea of performance management. So where, and talking about regular meetings and being specific, and the more regular you are, the more that people understand what they do well and where they need to improve, right? So it's so helpful. And then how to have those meetings, how to have those difficult conversations in conflict situations, right? So, which I know we're going to talk about later, but you know me and my conflict modes, so that's definitely something that I love doing as well. So yeah, so I would say, wellness classes, you know, um, more of the emotional intelligence, self-awareness classes, hiring, you know, um, the emerging manager, and then, performance management and generational diversity. So those are my,
I love it.
those are my go-tos.
I love
Yeah,
it.
I dig them. I light up. I mean, there's so many other classes. I mean, I'm a
Me too.
motivation nut, goal setting nut, right? Myers-Briggs and DISC, that's my bag. And I can spend all day whenever there's I'm glad that the supervisor series spends a whole day on disc because I'll spend 2 days on it, right? So,
Yeah. And in that one series we do, that half day is hard, huh?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I know. I know. I
yeah.
I rethink that every single time I do I do it as a half day. I'm like, I think we need more time for this, but um what it is. It's what it is.
Yeah. Cool. So that leads me to my question of the week,
Ooh.
which is based off of what we just talked about. It's top five. So, what is that class that you had that was challenging for you that ended up, maybe you went into it like, oh, I hope this doesn't suck, and it came out exactly how you wanted it, and even more.
Um I think I I think that honestly there's two that I can think of. The first one is the analyst series that I do. And when I was first approached about creating that series, I looked at like the descriptions, like the descriptions and the learning objectives, and I was like, I don't know if I'm the right person for this. This feels like way above my thought process. And after a really loving conversation, um, and this is like A leaders. Can I just say this is where you have an A leader versus someone who wants to keep you small. My A leader said to me, I don't think you know, but I've watched you work, and your brain does work in all of these ways. You just need to put it together of how you already are working. And I'm like, but I'm not analytical. They're like, you're actually more analytical than you think you are. And I was like, okay. And then I dove into it and I was like, oh, okay. Okay. I do think like this, now. And then it started like all, because I watched 51st Dates the other day, and I swear to you, that is me. I have the worst memory. I really do have the worst memory. Like, I just kind of go through life moving forward. So when you're like, hey, remember when? I'm like, what? I don't know. So, so I do a lot of great things, and I don't like keep track of them. I don't have like a list anywhere. I don't keep records. I just keep moving forward. I'm like, Dory, keep moving, not thinking about it. So
Just keep
when I really
swimming,
started,
just keep
yeah.
swimming. Yeah.
So when I really started to kind of reflect and think about like in all the ways that I am analytical, and all of the ways that I do have skills and techniques and things and experiences here, I put that together and I revised it. I think I went through that series at least 3 or 4 times. And I'm at a point now where I think I want to revise it again, but I don't want to. I do and I don't. I feel like it needs to be modernized, and I just don't feel like I want to take that on. But with that being said, that one, when I went in to start teaching it the first round, I was terrified. I really thought like these are analysts, these are managers, these are like everybody's incredibly intelligent and smart, but I said these people are really discerning. If I don't do this justice and teach these people something, then I'm really a fraud. That was my inner thoughts. And they went well, and I was getting a lot of feedback like this opened up my eyes, and oh, this made me really think about this, or oh, this gave me a great technique to use with my team. And I was like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. And so then I just kind of adapted and adapted to kind of meet the needs of that audience. And so I'm really proud of that now, but I could say that one was really really challenging for me. And most of the challenge was just me doubting myself. If it wasn't for those, again, grade A leaders being like, actually, you can do this, that was really inspiring for me. So I'm glad they took a chance, and I'm glad I did it okay. And then the other one is just that lead worker series that I did. And I wanted to do justice to that position, um, but really like create knowledge and um, context for what people are getting into in leadership, because it's a whole different skill set.
Mhm.
And I know for like a lot of places that kind of promote from within, they promote the people who are really, really good at the work, but that won't make them a good leader. And there's very little training unless you like self-teach or read books or watch podcasts or listen to this listen to this pod or or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
there's not a lot of like internal like theoretical knowledge spread to people about how to lead. It's just you get the title, they're expecting you to know what you're supposed to do now. And I know um like I didn't have any experience outside of work, like professional people. That wasn't like my social circle. Um, I didn't know what to do. And I was modeling like what I saw, which wasn't very healthy. And I picked up some really bad habits really early because you don't know what you don't know until you know better.
Yeah.
Um, so that one I really wanted to do justice to that particular population and really think about my experience and what I wish if I could go back, if I knew this then, if I knew then what I knew now, like where would I be? And that's really how I wanted to put it together. So it really was for me a labor of love to kind of build again experience for people who maybe don't have great examples, And working
Yeah.
in government long enough, we know that we don't always have really great examples of how to lead. So um that one was really hard for me too because I just wanted to make sure that it was right. That it was right. And I'm really pleased. And by the way, I'm really pleased. The only thing I wish I would have done differently, I wish day two on communication, I can split up into 2 days. If I could do one day disc and one day the other stuff, I think that would be better. I feel like I rush a little bit too much through that one and I never
Maybe it's
finish.
maybe it's a 6-day series. Yeah.
Maybe it is. We'll see if
Yeah.
we can advocate for that. But that would be honestly the only thing I would do differently. But the reception I've gotten so far and like the conversations and the realizations I think that people have, um, to me is really inspiring. And like what I share with them, they're the future of leadership. And like now's a good time to break the cycle, break the cycle of traumatic leadership. That's kind of how I pose it. And so we can do better if we know better. And the more that we can practice what we preach, the better off everybody's going to be. And it's just a really receptive audience. And so, I'm loving it. I want to do that all the time. It wasn't in
Right
my
on.
top five though. It wasn't in my top five, but to me, I think that was the hardest one because it was going to be a reflection of me and my journey. Um,
Mhm.
and I just wanted it to be right. So, and you teach it. So, I did something right. I did something
Yeah.
right because there are
Yeah.
other people do it too, which makes me really happy.
Yeah. I like it a lot. So
A
the
lot, a lot.
words. I like it a lot. Yeah, it's fun to teach. So yeah, I would I would
What
say
about you?
so, back when, you know, I'll go back to COVID. It was I was asked to create a class for returning to the office, right?
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that was that was definitely a challenge, right? Because it was before Delta. So when everybody thought COVID was lifting and then all of a sudden it was shut down again.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I remember that
and
whiplash.
so yeah, so I had a county that asked me to create a class for all their staff and for all their managers. And, just going through the idea of people have, emotional responses, right? And, it was, I mean, it's a once in a lifetime event. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody who was alive. I'm sure there were a couple people who were alive, during the Spanish flu and also COVID,
Right.
but they probably weren't aware of the Spanish
Mhm.
flu, or they're probably not aware of COVID right
Right, right.
now. But it's a once in a lifetime situation in America, right? And so, how are people responding to that? How would they respond to coming back to the office, right? At first, I had to really think about, they were using the idea of coming back to work. And I'm like, well, they've been working, right? So you tell somebody they're coming back to work, people might take that the wrong way, right? And words matter. And just so how do we address the need of starting over, creating a new normal, especially with some of the restrictions? This county was removing cubicles, right? The fixed cubicles and doing hoteling. So whoever came first that day was going to get that cubicle. And I know, people like their shit, right? So,
Right,
you
right,
know, that was going to be a challenge. So gosh, there's a lot of emotional baggage here. And so how do we address it? And so just giving people that space, going through, change model, giving people the chance to talk about it. And then, I said, okay, so then maybe some mindfulness at work techniques. So, and then the last, because it was only a half day class, right? So
right.
I had to solve all the county's problems in 3.5 hours. I love when that happens. It's
Me
wonderful,
too. Me too.
right? I'm like, gosh, I don't want to screw this up, right? This is meaningful. And so, the last part was going through the change communication model, the Noster model, and just as a way for people to have a common language, which addresses the the material components of change, but then also the personal feelings of change, so that people can identify, I'm feeling this way because of this. And so I thought that would be good for staff and managers to both have that language that they can use together so that it's not
Mhm.
something that's, oh, how you feel? Oh, it doesn't matter. It's, things will never change, which never solves the issue, right? And all it does is piss people off because you're never getting specific. So working on that. So it was a very good class, and I got through the staff and I got through half the managers, and then COVID came, Delta came back and we shuttered it again. But then, a couple years later, Alameda County asked for the same thing. And I said, well, make sure, it's not about returning to work, it's returning to the office, right? And it is, they're not going back to normal. Normal is I don't have to pay childcare and I don't have to deal with that commute on the 80 freeway or 880 freeway or anything else like that. So, and I don't have to deal with BART catching fire every 3 days nowadays. And so all those things like that. So I said it's going to be a new normal, even if they're going back to where they were. So just having
Right.
that need, and so I designed it and created it, and then they sat on it for a while, and then offered 20 days to me, and I think I could only do five of them because they waited too long. And you know how the
Yep.
spring, so people ended up. I think I taught three classes, and other people took it, and that's always hard. When you create your baby,
Yeah.
you have an idea of how you want to deliver it, and make sure you get that. So that was a challenging one that I wanted to make sure was done right. Another one, which is very similar, was a clerical series that I created, back in the day that I still run, just because office admin staff don't really get the opportunity to go to training a lot,
Right.
right?
Right.
And especially, counties use their budget for social workers and case managers and analysts and supervisors, and very often that leaves admin out. And so I devised a specific class, a series, to work with them, and they had to be 4 half days, so they can go to a morning and then cover the shift the next day, right? So we would have in the afternoon. And so it was definitely something where I wanted that to be meaningful for them too. I wanted them to know that they were appreciated, um, and appreciated by their county who asked for them to
Mhm.
go through this. And so, just doing some ideas on customer service, and especially if admin staff are working in the lobby dealing with hostility, right? And then a little bit of the organizational class that I teach. And I love teaching that class because it helps me to remember all the organizational tips I need because I'm a squirrel chaser, right? And then the last part is a wellness piece. So just wanted to include that and incorporate that into four meaningful classes for folks who don't always get the opportunity to access, our classes. So,
Mhm.
just those things that are, when I think about it, are they will have some type of effect. If they're done right, they'll have a very profound effect. If they're not done right, they'll have a minimal effect, which to me is that's a waste of time. I don't want to waste their time.
Right.
So I hear you.
Yep.
Yeah. So
My
those are mine.
biggest fear. Yep. I love it. I love it. I'm proud of so many things. I mean, that really got my wheels turning and thinking about it. But I think that all of what we do has such a tremendous impact. And I mean that in like the most humble way. Um, but I know like the trainings I've had throughout my career, I've had some really great ones and I've had some like waste of life. And I mean, there have been, like, as the person in training, some really impactful um, things that have had a trajectory on my life. You know, my very first UC Davis training was um, way back in the early 2000s. So I don't know if you know Lorraine Fox, but she came to our county. This was like my first memorable UC Davis training that I had.
Hmm.
And she came in and she had and actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it was actually her, Nora, and somebody else, and they were training about like how to train and like finding your training style. That was what the class was about. And Nora comes with, like, she always jokes like, I'm gonna need a semi for all the stuff. Like, Nora needs to get in the day before in a training room so she
Yeah.
can set up tablecloths and toys and pictures and colors and like all of these things. And what got my attention is that Lorraine Fox was like, I don't do any of that crap. I show up with one black marker and that's all I need. And she, like, I was like, who is
Yeah.
this lady? And then she would say like the most direct and yet really beautiful things. Like, one Lorraine Fox has an article called "Take This Job and Love It: The 10 A's to Job Happiness." That article I have used so many times. Like, I cannot tell, like, I still have my original copy, and it's the pages are yellow and it's highlighted and it's got notes on it, and it's been unstapled and restapled so many times that the little paper in the corner is completely gone. Because when I would hear like people really suffering at work, I'm like, you need to read this article. So that kind of shifted like what I wanted to do. And I would always say, I just want to be a UC Davis trainer when I grow up. And that again changed the trajectory of my life. I went through the old supervisor series with Teresita, and I was like
Yeah.
fangirled over Teresita. She would come in and she was always so polished, and she was just a sassy, unapologetic diva, and I loved it. Like, I loved her. And it's weird because as a trainer, like, or who trains, I I like the topics. I'm interested in the topics, but what I'm watching is how they train and
Hmm.
what they do and how they get us to think and act. So Teresita was awesome. She was a great storyteller, and I really loved the storytelling. So Nora, of course, is great. I learned so much about Nora. Nora is where I got what, so what, now what. The what, that was an original edition. That was on top of it. But I learned the what, the so what, now what from Nora. So she was really great. But there was the one training that changed everything for me, believe it or not, was and I don't even remember who the instructor was. I don't even remember like what he looked like, but it was about conflict. And it was part of a leadership development program that I was taking. And it was conflict management. And what was so crazy about that is that day that I came in, Mr. Salcido and I had like a really big fight, like really big fight. And um, I was ready. Well, I think we had already decided that morning that we were going to go our separate ways. Like, you know what? This just isn't working. You do you. I'm going to go do me. Let's go. And so I came into the class, and I'm pretty a cheerful person. You've met me. I'm pretty light, easygoing 99% of the time. And that day I was just in a really foul mood. I was heartbroken and angry and like all of the things. And I just wasn't willing to fake the funk that day. So I was literally sitting there with like kind of an attitude, didn't want to really engage with anybody. And so the guy comes in, he's like, okay, with conflict, you got three choices. You change it. If you can't change it, you learn to live with it. And if you can't live with it, you leave it. And I'm like, I'm leaving it. I'm leaving it. I'm not doing this anymore. And then, but I really started to like think because I had a real conflict going on. And so I was able to apply everything that he was talking about. And it was all from a work related perspective. It was a leadership development class, but every single thing that he was telling us 100% pertain to my current situation. And so I was really trying to be like applying it to my real life situation. And what I found at the end of that class is that I was the problem. News, newsflash, it was me. I was really like the source of my own pain and suffering. And but it also gave me the language to go and have like a healthy conversation. And obviously it worked because here we are, hashtag relationship goals. Um, with the we have the best relationship, and that really did change my perspective on almost freaking everything. Like from that day forward, like I looked at everything through that lens, and I don't even remember the guy. So when I train, I really do think like this could have an impact on somebody that changes their life. And not to say I'm so I don't know how to say this in English, but egoista. I don't know how to say it in English, whatever. But ego, there's ego in the word. I don't want to be like, oh, I'm gonna go in and change people's lives. That's not necessarily like my thought process. But when I do give a training, my thought is, how do I make this meaningful for everybody so that it can make a difference and it was worth their time and they can apply it. So that's what I think about. Like what little ripple effects is this going to have? And if I give a bad training, then I've lost that opportunity to have a ripple. And I want to be ripplelicious. Ripplelicious is the word I'm going to use today. Let me write that one down too. I'm on a
You
roll
know,
to.
when I hear Ripple, I think of Sanford and Son,
Mhm.
and because that was Fred Sanford's favorite drink. Except on special days, and this applies to you, when you mix champagne and Ripple, you get Champipple. I just want
Champipple.
Champipple. That's yours. I want you to
Yeah.
have that. When I think of you and when I think of dope, you all are both Champipplelicious. So
You're Champipplelicious, huh?
yeah, yeah. So it's Ripple and champagne, high end champagne, low end vodka, right? Ripple is old school, like Boone's Farms, and that's old school too. Zima. I don't know what is the equivalent of Boone's these days. I don't know. Right? The Club
Four
Fuzzy Maple
Loco.
or
Four
Loco. That's it. Okay.
Loco.
So think of Ripple
Four
as
Loco.
or Loco. Or Slurricane. E40 has his own. Have you seen those Slurricanes? Anyway, so
Okay.
it's straight
Do
like
you
syrup.
hold on, since we're talking about liquor, I have to just tell you this real quick.
Okay.
I bought this for my husband, which is really kind of funny because he doesn't ever smoke marijuana. He said he smoked it one time when he was like 15 and it gave him the munchies. And he says, I was already chubby. I didn't need
Hmm.
any any extra he said I have the munchies naturally. That's what he said. So he's never been into weed or anything like that. But he likes the Cheech and Chong movies. And so I don't know if you remember from the Cheech and Chong movie, they had the judge's water, and the judge's water was vodka. So that was the judge's water.
Yeah.
So Cheech and Chong made a vodka and they called it judge's water. And they had these special edition things that they sold it with the hardware that you could drink your vodka, your judge's water, and then the bottle turned into a bong. And it sent you all of the stuff to make your vodka bottle a bong. And
That's
so
hilarious.
I bought that for I got one of those limited edition bong things. It's in the box. Well, he'll never drink it. It's just gonna sit there because it's just a
Yeah,
cool thing. That's what it's called. It's called the Judge's Water, and it's a full bottle of vodka with the stuff to make it a bong. It's kind of fun.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
have a
thought it was
couple
cool.
bottles. I have a couple commemorative bottles like that. That'll never get opened. And if they did open, they'd probably stink to hell. But
Yeah, I have a
yeah.
few. We have a few. It's funny because we have a lot of liquor at our house. We don't drink it. And this is what's funny. I was like, you guys have a lot of liquor. And I'm like, I don't even know why we buy it. We very rarely drink like liquor cocktails. We're more like beer and wine people.
Mhm.
But we do like these special, like beautiful bottles. So I have lots of bottles full of liquor that will never ever be opened because they're just beautiful bottles.
Yeah,
And then but on our liquor cabinet, all the hot, I guess this is why they call it top shelf, all our commemorative bottles and beautiful ones that will never be opened are on the top two shelves, and then the rest of the shelves are the stuff that people can drink. So when we have company, And by company, I mean mostly my kids. So when the kids come by, or we do have company every now and then, we always say you could pick anything off the top, bottom shelves, like help yourself. But the top ones, those you can look at them, but don't touch them. I'll break your arm. Um,
Yeah, well, it's just like if
anyways,
anybody
I don't know how
ever
we got to talk about.
if anybody ever came over to our house, they would think that we love rosé, and it's not. I don't like rosé, and neither does my wife because it's super bitter and dry. But they have the best wine bottles. The rosé bottles, they're just the prettiest. So
Yeah.
I buy them. We don't drink them, but they stand up on our little liquor display. Yeah. People, oh, you like rosé? Not really,
Um,
but
listen, listen. Prosecco rosé, Prosecco rosé is elite, number one. And two, I can't believe I'm saying this because I haven't, Snoop Dogg really upset me and I haven't wanted to say anything nice about him. But there is a Snoop Dogg Cali
yeah,
rosé. That one is actually really, really great.
I like.
I bought some at Stater Brothers because they were on sale for half off. They were 6.50, and I'm like, I'll try the Snoop Dogg wine for 6.50. You know what I mean? Because I'm a connoisseur. But I popped a bottle, and it was actually one of the nicest bubbly rosés that I've had. So good job to that winery.
Yeah,
To the
I like the Snoop Dogg one, the red because
the
it's
red one is really
sweeter,
good too.
and both my wife and I will drink that because she likes sweet wines. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Except I haven't bought it in a while, but we're gonna talk
If
about Snoop.
do you have
Yeah,
a world? Yeah, yeah.
yeah. We have a world market. Yeah,
So
yeah.
if your wife likes sweet wine, like this is just me and Carl talking. The rest of I forgot we had listeners, but if you like, if she likes sweet red wine, there's one that they sell at World Market from South Africa called Jam Jar. It's a sweet Syrah, but I'm gonna warn you real quick. It's like 14% alcohol, which is really, really high for a wine. And so it's definitely a sipper, a
Yeah.
sipper. I wouldn't go heavy on that. Like I learned I can't tell you, I heard from a friend that if you drink the whole bottle by yourself, it's not a good idea. I heard from a friend. I think I read that on Reddit somewhere.
Oh,
So
yeah. Well,
yeah.
I hear I'm a Zinfandel guy, so it's usually 15-16%. So yeah, but I mean, if we're talking about wine, if you ever are in San Luis Obispo County and going through Paso Robles, there's a Chronic Cellars
Oh
is
yeah, I've heard of that.
there, and it's got all the Dia de los Muertos insignia, and they sell it at I think both Total Wine and Bevmo, but they do really really good reds, and it's kind of kitschy, and their tasting room is awesome. Our former boss at UC Davis is a member there just because we took them there one time and they became members. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was so yeah. Anyways, so Champimple, just remember that, you know, which leads us to, I guess, our topic, which, we were going to talk about feedback, but I mean, really just the more that we've been talking about this topic, it's, and this is my, I think this might be both of our personalities per se, is you're in the midst of something and all of a sudden you get inspiration,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And, and it pisses the hell off of those people who want to follow structure. All right. Oh, we could do this. No, no, but we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about this, which, you know, I know it frustrates people, but so I just talking about those topics and things like that in our training and some of the ways that we, or some of the classes we devised, I thought it'd be a good idea. Just, we haven't really talked about it. I mean, we're both, if you guys don't really know us very much, by the way, if you have a special, fun, sweet wine, put it in the chat or put it in the
Yes.
Facebook chat, the Instagram chat, put it in your the chat of whatever podcasting site that you use. Just let us know because we're always looking for recommendations. And if I get more sweet reds, then my wife and I can share the bottle. We don't have to, you know, let it go to pot. So, um, but
Listen, I'm gonna say go beyond those comments. Go ahead and send a box to my house, and then I'll tell you if you're right. How about that? I'll
hmm,
volunteer as tribute.
we can do taste tests. Yes, we've done keeping it real after dark. We can do keeping it real at the bar. So
We
yeah,
could we could do keeping it real day drinking edition. I'm a good
oh,
day drinker. I'm a
I'm
good
not.
day drinker.
Day drinking
Oh.
leads to day sleeping for me. I can't do it. I'm,
Mm.
yeah, I'm too old.
I like a good
Yeah,
day drinking and in bed by 8 o'clock. Ooh, speaking my language.
yeah, you sound like my wife. Yeah. This concludes part one of our episode. Stay tuned for part two, and we'll do all major